Today on the breakdown, all hell is a comin' for Oliver Weis and perhaps Georgios Tsouloftas. I knew I'd get that right. Because holy macaroni, everything is happening in this crazy, crazy hand from the final table of the Cyprus EPT main event. Over $1 million for first place. There's 6 players left. One player has 1 blind. It's ICM suicide? Perhaps. But, you know, it's one thing to have a great hand. It's another thing to hold on with that great hand when all kinds of pressure is coming your way and the board is terrifying. It's like that movie with Art the Clown, you know, terrifying. It's not what it's called, Grant. It's a joke. It's a joke for our horror movie fans, Grant. It's called Terrifier, and everyone knows it, Grant, but you. Grant doesn't know it because Grant's a dad now, and he never goes out. All right, and we're going to go to the breakdown with Grant Dennison and Jonathan Levy.
I go out. I go to child-friendly restaurants that serve the kind of mac and cheese that my daughter will eat. So I go to one restaurant. I go
Pretty
to one
good.
place.
3 years old, boss of the house.
Yeah, that's life. Whatever. Yeah. It's not like the 1800s where you just had a bunch of kids and put them outside on the farm and be like, make me money. It's not like that anymore, unfortunately. The woke mob has stopped me from making my child into a farmer at age 3.
It could be. You know what? Like, go outside the blinds a little bit there, man. Like, try something different. Put it to work. Yeah. See what happens. It's an experiment. It's a fun experiment.
Maybe they let you do that. Maybe they let you do that in Cyprus, where this event is taking place. Cyprus and Malta, known for their laissez-faire approach to both economics and child rearing.
I believe one of the most popular pamphlets in Cyprus is titled "Treat Your Child Like an Employee." So there it is.
And you know who's really doing God's work here is the people who track how popular pamphlets are in each country. I'm glad they do it because it's hard work and it's thankless work because then somebody just says it on a podcast. They use your work and they say it on a podcast and they don't even give you credit.
That's how it is in the pamphlet game. The pamphlet analytics game.
It's a tough game. Just like poker. Poker can be tough when you've got Oliver Weis trying to ruin your day if you're Georgios Tsouloftas.
Right.
So those are their names, but we're not exactly sure if that's how we say Tsouloftas, but we're going to go with that's as good as it gets.
That's how James Hartigan says it. I mean, Hartigan is as much an authority on how to pronounce people's names as anybody who he's saying. So I think we can say it's Tsouloftas and feel good about it.
Okay. Let's say that then.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I think also, by the way, people who do the drinking game where they have certain phrases that Jonathan says during the opening, I think they had 2 drinks today. He said all hell's breaking loose. He says that maybe 1 out of 3
I did not say all hell's breaking loose.
What'd
I said all hell's a coming. Totally different.
Well, all hell is something that does happen.
I want people to rescind that drink. I want them to get it back. Give it back.
Yeah, okay.
What's the other one?
Holy macaroni.
Oh,
you say that with some frequency.
No, for sure. It's my way of trying to say this is important but fun. There's a wistfulness to it, don't you think? Holy macaroni.
Macaroni does capture important but fun because pasta is an important food it's a staple of many diets. And it's also historically important in that there's many cultures that associate pasta with their culture and care a lot about it, you know?
Many cultures? Okay.
Yeah, there's at least a few. I wouldn't call it pasta, but there's in China, there's a lot of noodles, but so I don't know if that counts. Obviously, you're thinking of Italy.
I think you now have given macaroni and cheese a bit of an outsized importance because, as you just told us, your daughter will only eat one type and thus you only go to one restaurant as a result. So I think you maybe are blowing it up a little bit in terms of its relevance to the rest of the world.
I was exaggerating a little bit with that, but that's like the general vibe of a child. She does really enjoy macaroni and cheese in one restaurant in particular, but she will eat macaroni and cheese anywhere, anytime. Any restaurant, if they have mac and cheese, we're going.
What a gift.
We're hitting it up.
I mean, macaroni and cheese is good and everyone likes it. So let's not.
It is. I mean,
not lose our
honestly, free promo for Kraft. You don't have to get better than Kraft. Kraft mac and cheese is pretty good if you make it with butter. If you just put like a little water in there, you're a fool. You got to make it with butter and milk, but it's good. It's actually good. You know?
Okay. All right. I mean,
hey,
acknowledge. No free rides for Kraft anymore. They're $1 billion corporation.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll pay us. Robert Kraft is generous.
It's true.
All right.
Pay us in mac and cheese. It's fine. I just want to get a huge box at my door.
Hey, it says that a person suggested this on Discord, but they didn't. That person suggested a different hand that we might do later. So I'll tell you that it was Jonathan Levy suggested this hand.
Yes. Jonathan Levy watched this live as it was happening on the Cyprus feed of YouTube or whatever we're calling that. And holy macaroni, it was something else.
Yeah. Computer, show me the Cyprus feed.
Yeah.
Computer.
Enhance.
Yeah. Cyprus feed now.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Should we get to it?
I'm really excited to do this hand. Yeah.
All right. You're excited. I'm medium. I'm fine. I don't care.
Great.
It's a $5,300.
That's what you want. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. It's a $5,300 main event.
Yeah.
We have 6 remaining. As Jonathan mentioned, there is a 1 blind stack. The modularly famous Anton Wig. Yes, I said modularly famous.
You did say that. Why did you say that?
Take with that what you will.
Okay.
He's got 1 blind. And the current payout is $208,000. The next jump is to 271. First is 1 million. So there are definitely ICM considerations with the 1 blind player there. There's a $70,000, $65,000 difference, which is huge important. Yeah. It's important. It's 13 buy-ins for this tournament. That's cool. But you know, the real money is very much on top. It's 4 times the 5th place payout, which is what you would be ICMing your way to if you held on a little extra for that 1 blind player to bust.
I like to give a little bit of context for this hand also, because we know something about both players that they know about each other. So I think this is useful information, will be relevant for this hand. Number 1, Oliver Weis, I didn't know this till I tuned in, but is a online tournament crusher, has won millions online and is known for that. And so like him being the chip leader coming in, like he's that guy, number 1.
Yeah.
The other piece of relevant information is Tsouloftas, literally the hand before, it folded to him in the small blind. He limped. Antoine Wig raised with ace jack. I think they both had around like a little less than 20 blinds, but something like that. And Tsouloftas limp shoved queen 10 off, got insta-called by ace jack and flopped a queen. And so that's why, literally just a hand before, Antoine Wig is now short. So both these guys have a little bit of reputation as well, which the other guy would know about, even just from this small bet.
They must have been a bit deeper than under 20 blinds because Tsouloftas now has 5.8 million to start this hand, and this is the very next hand at 100K big blind.
So I guess he like limp shoved like 28 blinds or something. Wow.
That's serious. I mean, maybe Wig made it really big. Blind. Did he make it
even
5
if he
blinds
did?
or something?
If he made it 5, I guess he could have 5x'd it. He might have 5x'd it. I don't remember that part of it. I just remember I saw Wig raised, and it never occurred to me we were going to see a limp shove at those stack sizes, I guess. And then I was like, oh, he's all in, and Wig didn't even waste a moment calling. So Wig didn't even think about it for a second, which also says a little something about Tsouloftas, right? I mean, ace jack you're going to call, but still
you're going to have to call it off.
But you could think about it for a second if it's 27 blinds, right? You could be like, well,
not if you're Anton Wig.
Right.
Not if you're Anton Wig. He's been around for a while. He's got another thing to do after this. He's calling. He's going to figure out who wins. That's the deal. Let's move. Okay. Let's go. He's got dinner reservations, you know, and he's going to probably get to them pretty soon with his 1 blind left.
Yeah, probably.
But the lucky one in the hand Tsouloftas is in this hand and now on the button.
Yep. The very next
hand. This opens with Weis opening min from the cutoff with queen jack of clubs. Weis is the overwhelming chip leader at this point. He's got something like 20 million in chips.
Yeah,
it's 200 bigs. Right. Yeah. So he's apparently an elite online crusher and has all the chips. It's a nice life to be Oliver
really
Weis.
Good spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Queen jack of clubs opens to 200K from the cutoff. I love queen jack suited. It might, no, king queen suited is the prettiest hand. Queen jack suited is
Queen jack of diamonds is prettier. Queen jack of diamonds is the prettiest hand. That's a weird thing to say.
Prettier than king queen of spades.
Yeah.
Hearts. King queen of hearts.
Come on. Now you're just flailing. You're flailing around and it's embarrassing.
I am not. King, queen of spades and king, queen of hearts I would leave my wife for those hands. Okay.
I have left
I
my
hope
wife
she didn't
for those
hear me.
hands.
I hope she couldn't hear me when I said that, but I didn't mean it.
That's what happens when you're married. There it is. That's why.
You're just always trying to find reasons that your lonely life is justified, aren't you?
Right. I didn't mean it. If you heard anything, I didn't mean it at
I'm
all.
kidding.
Don't be angry at
She
me,
wouldn't.
Please.
She doesn't care. She's
Right.
going to leave me anyway.
No. Yeah.
Anyway, queen jack of clubs.
Yep.
Oliver Weis, 200K cut off. Tsouloftas, right after doubling up, gets aces. 2 black aces. What a deal.
Pretty good.
What's your sizing when you start with 58 bigs here? 5.8 million is 58 bigs. Nice, easy math at the 100K blind level. I like it.
Yeah, that is super nice. I mean, I don't think we need to go super big or anything like that. I like in a tournament setting, I think 3x is probably fine, like 600K. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, in position. I think 3x is good.
Yeah, we're in position.
He goes 650, which is basically the same. It's fine. Weiss, somehow Anton Wig finds a fold. I guess with Big Blind Ante, he has a full orbit to find a hand, but this is actually kind of a good spot to put it in, to flick it in with any two, right? When you're in the small blind with the amount of money that's going to be in there.
It's pretty good, except that now we have a chance to ladder up once in a while, right? Weiss might bust this guy, and we might actually get a free $70,000. So if we like our hand at all, if we have 9-10 off, I think we're going with it. But if we have 9-4 off, I think we look and we actually have a decision to make, because like 12% of the time or something like that, they just hand us $70,000.
Yeah, that's true.
Take it. Yeah,
that's true. Fair enough. Probably. Yeah, waiting the orbit to see if somebody gets coolered is kind of nice too. I know TDA has changed the rule. I assume EPT has adopted it at this point, where the blind goes in before the ante, so you can actually win money out of the big blind if you have less.
Instead of just getting a refund, you beat 4 people and you just get your money back.
Yeah, that was never a good rule.
It was always
they
bad.
changed that, thankfully. Anyway, he's out. And we are back to Weiss with Queen Jack suited. And I feel like he's going to have a lot of effective jams here with the stack dynamic. Like maybe Queen Jack suited is just perfect to not jam with because it's just such a playable hand.
Yeah.
But with the one blind stack and you have the massive chip lead and it's like the late position dynamic here is probably a good play to like pretty much jam any weak ace down his throat, right?
The only question is, what kind of guy is Tsouloftas?
I don't know how it's possible after all of these years of pronouncing names and learning names that within the course of 10 minutes of the same podcast, you like figure out the name and then you have to refigure it out. And it's going to happen again. Mark my words. It's going to happen again.
So what?
It's just like, how does your brain not keep it? How do you not keep it?
I don't try and keep that. I throw that out right away and I moved on to things that are more important to me. That's how we do it here in this brain, in this land.
Have to try.
Levy
land.
Anyway.
So what do you think? What do you think the overall strategy is here for Weiss in this stack dynamic? And like, if there's going to be hands that you don't 4-bet and want to see a flop with, what are those types of hands?
Well, the first question I'd have as Weiss is, how wide do we think Tsouloftas is going to be here when there's a one blind stack behind him that's essentially always going to get it in with just an opener, with almost probably any two, with the ante and all that other stuff, where it's going to be an isolated spot and and Wig is getting like 4-1 basically to call blind. Like it's such a great spot for him, right? That it's possible that Tsouloftas is going to be surprisingly like have a very strong range here when he 3-bets compared to almost any other time. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but it feels like that should be right. Yeah. Because
that may or may not be right. I'm not really sure what Tsouloftas' overall strategy is, but we do know that the previous hand he got 28 blinds in with Queen 10 off. So he might be a little more loosey-goosey.
He was the short stack at the table. Now, he didn't have a super small stack. He might be loosey-goosey anyway. You are correct. But still, this is such a particular spot where you think you would really try and calm your demons on this one spot when Weiss raises, where you're like, all I have to do is fold. And Weiss has a playable hand here that's a showdownable hand Weig's going to get in with any two. Like we're like 75% to ladder up here and not do something stupid. Like, so most of the time, I think you're probably just finding a fold or maybe a call once in a while to help even, like bust the dude as opposed to the
soft
3-bet.
collusion, little soft collusion.
Yeah. I think it's a really ready-made spot for some soft collusion, right? You just flat.
Yeah.
What's Wig going to do? Doesn't Wig just have to put it in most of the time? And when he doesn't, we get to see a hand in position. It's not that bad. Anyway, it's fine, right? So I'm wondering if he has a stronger range than he would normally. Now, what does that really mean? Does that mean he's not going to raise ace jack? I mean, he's probably raising ace jack, right? Probably.
I don't know. It's kind of a leveling war, right? Because you have this dynamic going on. So you should assume as Weis that Tsouloftas is going to be a little tighter with the raises. But then if Tsouloftas assumes that Weis is assuming that, then you can get a little looser with the raises. And it's just a leveling war and who knows where it goes.
I just don't know if it's worth it so much in this leveling war. It's just like it might be a one hand leveling war. And it's like, it's so much easier just to opt out of it entirely rather than get into it with the super crusher who's got all the chips, So, but that doesn't mean to say that that's correct. And that's what Tsouloftas is doing, right? Tsouloftas really might be doing what you're talking about and being like, this guy's opening a lot. He's opening like ace 4 here for sure. He's opening like king 3 suited for sure. Like jack 10, he's opening for sure. Like, I'm just going to, all I have to have is a somewhat showdownable hand myself. I get to play against Anton, knock this guy out. It's great. And sometimes everyone folds and that's good too. So it's possible he's thinking that way. It's not crazy. He has the chips to do it now.
I mean, I would be a little afraid with ace jack that the online crusher dude who has the massive chip lead and is aware of the one blind stack is going to 4-bet me a lot.
I would be too. I would be too.
Yeah.
So then that why put myself in this position at all? Like it's so easy to avoid and it's not going to be a recurring dynamic. It's just isn't going to last long like this. Like Wig is going to get some chips or be out really soon. So it's just not going to be a thing. So I could see
it is.
I'm guessing he's stronger here than he would normally be.
Maybe, but again, it is a leveling war because if we go on all those assumptions, then the initial assumption is thrown out that there's going to be lots of 4-bets. And then that makes all the other assumptions moot in the first place. Right. So
moot, but still these are human beings. So I just would think like, it's so easy to be like, I'm not going to get out of line this one time. I'm going to have so many opportunities to 3-bet Oliver anyway. Like, it isn't like I'm not going to play back at him. I'm going to play back at him constantly. This particular instance, I'm going to let Anton bust. Oliver has something. Like, there's just no need to do that. And if I have a good hand, like king, queen suited, for example, I'm probably more apt to call than 3-bet, ace jack, even maybe I just call with it. It's 2 blinds. Let's see if we can bust this fucking guy and whoever wins, who cares? Like, we're not going to be bluffing each other much, right? We're trying to ladder up and stuff, most likely. Now, maybe Oliver's still willing to bluff us, but then we only put in 2 blinds anyway. It's not a big deal. We have a lot of blinds here. I don't know. Yeah. I can make a case for a lot of calls with good hands.
So the default assumption then is that he's going to be tighter. That's my belief. Which is probably fair, but it is interesting. It removes the initial threat. But maybe regardless of all of that, Weis just has such a good hand to call with. Yeah. Call the 3-bet with. Like, this hand, unless you're very deep, doesn't really want to 4-bet. I mean, like, I think it's fine to 4-bet in a heads-up situation out of position with 300 blinds deep situation. It makes for some interesting game tree dynamics that can happen. But at 58 blinds deep, it feels like we just have to flat this hand and take it.
Yeah, because it's going to be, we can 4-bet fold if we want to. Yeah. But why, again, it's so fancy to do with this really pretty hand that can do very well all by itself. Yeah. And the guy over here with 58 blinds, Tsouloftas, isn't necessarily going to lose his mind taking stabs at this with the 1 blind stack, and he can't threaten our life, right? Yeah. So a call makes a lot of sense to me. I think a call is just I think it's like pure call spot with this hand. Yeah, that's what Weis does. He calls. Yeah. Pot's 1.55 million chips. Again, Tsouloftas is the effective stack between these guys, starting with 5.8 million. So he's down near 5 now. The flop is 8-7-6, 2 spades, 1 club. So backdoors for Weis. Tsouloftas does have the ace of spades, but this is not the flop that he wanted to see with aces. No. It's a pretty scary flop. Weis is just going to go ahead and lead out. Yeah. Which is what the online crushers do, I guess. I'm curious what you think about his sizing. He goes pretty big. 850 into 1.55 on the flop.
What do you think?
I guess he's trying to fold out all the marginal stuff entirely. He's just saying, like, it's not worth it to continue. Just don't continue.
Yeah.
Like, just fold ace king. I'm not going to bet 400 or 500 even, and make you just like feel like you have to call once with ace king and then have to play a complicated hand. And I'm not going to do that. Like, you're just going to fold ace king, ace queen right now. Which I think, unless you have the ace of, even with the ace of spades, I think you're probably just going to fold. Again, when there's a guy with one blind behind you, you're not deep enough to really like get all cute. I think you just fold, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think this is an extension of the pre-flop discussion about like Weiss applying ICM pressure due to the one blind stack. This is another way to do it, right? He gets the range advantage flop. He has the 2 back doors, which, are relatively weak. I wonder if he does it even if there's no club on the board. If it's 8-7-6 with a diamond instead of a club for the 7. Or if he needs the 2 back doors.
Yeah.
Or is he just going with a range?
My guess is this is a range-based play only. So I don't think he cares about the back doors in this exact spot with the one blind guy behind him. Like, it's just such a good spot to apply pressure. And he's not afraid to do it. And so, I mean, it's an interesting thing because, so I've been playing, since I moved to Puerto Rico, I've had to play online more again. And I've really learned something playing online, which is they never, ever, 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 ever have it when they donk ever. Like, ever. It's crazy. And I've started to apply that to my live stuff too now, where I find myself like going call with like middle pair when a guy leads against me, because they just never have it. Like, it's just like, nope. Once again, they didn't have it. And it's wild to me. Now, I'm sure really good players are going to have it sometimes, right?
Yeah, but Weiss is going to have it, right?
Weiss is going to have it sometimes. But, it's just wild to me how rarely anyone actually has it when they donk. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing Weiss is
better than all these guys that I'm playing against, of course. Yeah. So he's going to be more balanced, but I don't think that means he's balanced either, especially in this very particular spot where he may not need to be balanced at all, right? There may be no reason to be balanced.
You should expect him to be unbalanced if your Tsouloftas is just like, all right, I guess how far are we going to go with this thing? You know, like, are we really just going to go with pure theory and an understanding of who our opponent is and just bust on this hand sometimes? Because that's where this is headed, right? Like, that's when he leads, that is where this is headed.
No question. That's saying, first of all, fold all your ace highs unless you have the nut flush draw with it somehow, right? But unless you have ace king suited, ace queen suited of spades or whatever, like, just fold right now. And if you have an overpair, get ready, because I'm threatening a very bumpy ride for you. And how are you going to deal with this? Yeah.
It's an uncomfortable spot for sure. Tsouloftas with 2 aces with the ace of spades, of course, cannot be laying this hand down at this point.
No,
that would be absurd.
Absurd.
So he makes the call. There's really no raising either.
Be crazy
because Weiss can have it, right? I would expect that Weiss would lead a straight here. I would expect that he would lead a set here, or 2 pair, anything like that.
I think at least sometimes he would do that. I don't know if he would do it all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah. He's probably going to have some flush draws, some straight draws.
Yeah. And turns out,
and then he's got
2 back doors.
Then he's got the queen jack of clubs on the 8-7-6 with 2 spades and 1 club.
Yeah.
So Tsouloftas calls. The pot is 3.25 million now. The turn is good news, bad news. Mostly bad news for Tsouloftas. It's the 9 of spades.
Yeah.
So he does have the nut flush draw now, but of course the board now has a 4-liner to a straight on it and 3 spades. So there's lots of things that can beat aces now. This is the card that Weiss is looking for, right? Like this type of card. I mean, he would prefer 4 club. If 4 club, he would have like a real draw.
The 9 of clubs would be unbelievable, but this is a pretty good card for us. Like all the things we were leading with that were bluffs should have improved on this card, right?
Yeah.
Should have. That's a big deal already. Also, this card is not super likely to have hit our opponent here. Like, I guess he can have 9-9. I guess he can have 10-10. I don't know if he's always even 3-betting those in this exact spot. He might be, but he might not be with the guy with 1 blind behind him sometimes. He might just call and like check it down, or like just try and eliminate the guy and play careful instead of getting eliminated and have an ICM disaster with 2 9s in his hand, kind of a thing, right? So maybe he can have 9s and 10s. Maybe he can't. Maybe he's always 3-betting those. But like, it doesn't help him that often. Right? Like it just doesn't help much.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you want to approach this as Weis if we're going to continue this story? It feels like we have to continue the story here.
Yeah.
There's 3.25 million in the pot and Tsouloftas has 4.4 million. So how do we want to like, what's our foundational sizing here for how we're going to deal with this situation?
We have two options, right? We either have whole hog or we have small to set up the threat of at
small
least
hog.
like
small
hog to threaten the middle hog on the river, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
You need a combination of a small hog and a medium hog, or you need a big hog. That's what you need.
Right. Everyone says that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I like small better than big for a few reasons. Number one, once in a while we move in and we get snap called and it's an absolute fucking disaster because the guy's got ace, king of spades, ace, queen of spades, king, queen of spades, 10, 10.
Tens. Yeah.
9-9, and I think 9-9. I assume 9-9 is calling if we go all in here. I assume we can't actually get a set to fold, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Probably
it's a
not.
Disaster card, but
a set doesn't like it with not getting the right price to hit against a superior hand and a one blind stack sitting there.
It's true. That's fair. One of the cool things about betting small though is it's much more terrifying, right? If we go big, we look like. I mean, we can have it. But we rarely are going to bet a flush like 4 million into 3 million in this exact spot, right? Because we're going to get so many folds. We don't want to fold out 2 red queens, right? If we have a flush, we want to bet small and have 2 red queens call us in theory, right? So I don't think we would bet huge on this board very often where both of us are somewhat uncapped, right? Like our opponent, I don't even know if we can have ace, king of spades. Our opponent definitely can. Tsouloftas absolutely can have ace, king of spades. He can probably have ace, queen of spades. Maybe can have other ace, x of spades or other spade combos as well.
Yeah.
We can have spade combos too. I don't know if we can really have ace, king of spades. That's the one I'm not sure about. Everything else we can definitely have. But like the point is Tsouloftas is uncapped here for sure. Also, I don't think he's ever folding 2 tens if he has 2 tens or any 10. He's not folding a straight either. If he has a set, I don't think we would successfully get him to fold that. I like betting small for all those reasons. And guess what? 2 red queens are going to hate their life, probably find a lot of folds anyway, even though we're like saying a flush would bet small to get 2 red queens to call. Really, a flush is betting small, so 2 black queens call, right? So like 1 spade calls.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I agree with all of the stuff you're saying in theory, but like in particular in cash games, maybe it probably applies to extreme ICM situations too, but in cash games, when we're deep, I feel that like I often use theoretically incorrect sizing, like bad story sizing that's just way too big to get people to fold, and it just works. It just works way too much for me to not do it because they just don't want to lose that much money. That's all it really is. Right. You know? Like, and it's usually in range advantage spots where I just don't have it. And if I did have it, I wouldn't bet that much. You know, there's actually last time I played, another pro was to my right, and he did that thing to like an amateur on his right, where he raised the turn after checking back the flop, having 3-bet with what was clearly just the nut flush draw, because it was like a 1 card nut flush draw, and then didn't improve on the river and like went way too big. And I was like, that's definitely the ace of spades and the queen of clubs, or like some version of that on like the 10 high board that had 3 spades on the turn. It's like, you never play it that way and you never size it that way unless you're just trying to get a guy who doesn't want to put that much money in to fold and you have the nut blocker. Right.
So you would only do that against someone who's like a massive calling station you have a huge dynamic with, right? Otherwise, you're just not going to bet insanely big when they're capped on a very scary board, right? Like, why would you do that, right? Unless you're trying to get them to fold, right? Now, that doesn't stop them from folding. It works.
Of course, the guy folded. Like, the guy who did it is a pro for a reason, because he knows when he can do that and when he can't do that, right? Like, he's good at that. Right. Which is, it's just interesting that, like, so this might be a spot like that, you know, where the money is so intense and there's such a strong ICM consideration with the 1 blind stack that perhaps you don't need to tell a good story. You just need to threaten too much.
I agree. We don't need to tell a good story here. But it's possible a small bet will really do a great job anyway against a lot of the range. Right.
Yeah.
I guess the thing we get when we move in is we get to fold out like ace king with the ace of spades or ace king with the king of spades, right? The single spade hands that, although ace king shouldn't be there anyway. How does ace king with the single spade? They're folding the flop anyway.
Yeah.
So actually, that's not even an issue. So I think we're like attacking overpairs when we bet the turn, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
for sure. I mean, we don't think.
Yeah.
We don't think. I mean, maybe he's got some like ace-8 suited type hands. We could be attacking those type of hands.
Okay.
Too.
Well, a small bet will work against that anyway, right? A small bet will 100%. Overpairs are going to hate it either way. And I think overpairs without a spade in their hand are going to fold, and overpairs with a spade in their hand might call anyway. Like if you have two aces with the ace of spades right now and you get shoved on, are you supposed to fold in reality? I mean, you might fold because it's such a tough spot with the guy behind you. Maybe you just fold anyway, but like that's a hand you're supposed to call with, right? In theory, you block the nut spades.
Yeah. Would you rather have that or a set? I mean, you have more outs with a set, 2 more outs with a set.
I think we have more outs. That's the reason to have a set. You're right. Yeah. But we don't have many more outs if we have the ace of spades in our hand anyway. It depends what we're up against. 2 more outs. A set's 11 outs but we block
draw.
Like there's more bluffs in theory, right? Well, not maybe more bluffs, but we block the nut flush draw, which is like, the thing is, it's weird is like, and this starts to get interesting is what in the world hands is this other guy betting with when he does this? If we have these hands like a set of 8s or two black aces here, and the guy moves in on the turn, right? Like, what hands is he doing that with? And do we have calls or not? I don't know the answer. Like, it's hard to think that Weis is doing this with a set. He's not going to move in with a set on the turn, right? That seems crazy on this board.
Probably not.
Insane. So now he's down to straights and flushes only.
Well, I think that's part of the story, right? Like, I think Weis might bet 950 with a set. So
I don't know.
Telling a bit of a better story.
Or not. I don't know. I mean, he bets 950. Would he even bet a set at all here on the turn? I'm not sure if he would.
I'm not sure, but if he were to bet a set, I would guess 950
small.
is a lot more likely than all in. Yeah.
Agreed. It just is such a disaster to bet your set, get shoved on, and I guess you could just afford it if you're Weis and maybe you decide to call, but it sucks. Like, you've really put yourself in such a weird, bad spot. You'd hate to do that.
I think it's a call. I think it's a call because of the situation you're in. If you do win the hand, you're already stomping on the table, but there's a 1 blind stack that's sitting there. You'll now have you'll have 260 bigs and just have everybody over a barrel for the rest of the final table unless things go very poorly.
In fairness, you already do have everybody over a barrel.
Yeah.
There already is that 1 blind stack, and you already have by far the most chips. So you're kind of already in that situation. It would be even more extreme, but you're kind of already there. So by calling, you're giving up some of that because you're making the guy on your left, who we know is at least a little wild, like you're chipping up pretty dramatically. And now he's a problem. So I don't know. Maybe we find a fold if we think we only have 10 outs. I don't know.
Fair. But it is feasible that Weis, I think what Weis is doing is making it at least feasible that his value range is a little wider than just super strong hands.
Fair enough. If you're going to betting small, I think makes sense because now we can at least in theory have some sets here. I think we're checking some of our sets, but maybe we're betting some of our sets too. It's not crazy by any means. Like, we do want to charge 2 black aces, for example. We don't want to just give them a free shot at the river.
Right.
And we don't mind a fold, obviously, even with our set on this board.
I mean, any overpair with a spade in it, we want to charge, right? So it works. Anyway, he does bet 950.
Okay.
Which is like kind of cozy for Tsouloftas, right? Because now you can just comfortably call. You don't have to make any huge decision right now. You have the ace of spades. Let's just hope a spade comes.
We're getting the right odds. Somehow we're getting the right odds to just call here. Or we're getting 4-1. It's amazing. Like, we can just sit back, take our pure equity in the hand and not worry about it until and then figure it out on the river. Hopefully it goes check a lot, right? Because what do we look like we have here? Like, when we call the turn, we can have this kind of a hand, or we can have like 2 10s, right? That's like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a 2 10s type hand or a different overpair with a spade in it.
Yeah. Right.
Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 things.
And and like no unpaired hands, right? To the point that you made earlier about the flop call. Yeah. He's not really going to have ace queen off here ever.
Doesn't seem possible.
Yeah. So he's got the flush, or he's got a pair with a spade, or he's got 2 10s.
Yep.
Or maybe a set. Sometimes
I was going to say he could actually have 9-9, right? Maybe he has 9-9 sometime. Call the flop. Now he's just going to call the turn, and we'll see what happens. But also very uncomfortable for a set of 9s as well. Like, if the board doesn't pair, like, what are we going to do if the guy shoves on the river? I don't know. Figure that out.
Yeah, but at
when we
least
get there, I guess.
Just like the aces with the ace of spades, 2-9s gets the cozy, easy call on the turn.
So easy. Such an easy call for these hands. Now, from Weiss's point of view, we're going to get the call with those hands, but if the board doesn't, if the board doesn't get, the board is so scary that like we might be able to push all those hands off later and make more chips in this hand by getting the call here too. It's pretty sweet if we decide to bluff the river and if we need to, because of course a 10 makes us a straight.
Now I know what happens in the end, but I'm curious, and the river is not a spade, spoiler.
Right.
I'm wondering if Weiss would have gone for it if it were a spade.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's
hard to know.
I think it's unlikely because what do you suppose? The only thing you're targeting against a fourth spade is like 2 non-spade 10s, right? I think that's literally the only hand. Maybe a set.
I mean, what does jacks with the jack of spades do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe they just fold anyway. What do kings with the king of spades do? I mean, do they just have to call?
Tough.
They probably call, but they don't like it. They don't like it at all. Yeah. So really it's just the ace of spades. So it's really just aces that we think like may hold on if a spade comes, and like kings are going to have a tough spot. Maybe they call anyway, but I don't know. It's going to be an interesting decision if that comes, but it doesn't come a fourth spade. It's still an interesting decision, by the way.
It is. And let's get to it. 5.15 million in the pot. Tsouloftas is the effective stack with 3.4 million remaining. The river is the 6 of clubs, parrying the bottom flop card on the board. 8, 7, 6, 9, 6 with 3 spades. It is sopping wet. Yeah, everything is there.
Everything.
So I think this is a pretty good card for Weiss to continue his story because he kept the sizing small on the turn. So it's feasible that he could now have a full house. And it's also feasible that he, with the SPR, could move in with a flush or a straight also. So he has a relatively wide value range out of position here. Would you agree with that?
I think these things are all feasible. I don't know if they are actually happening in the real world very often, but I think they are all feasible. Like him betting the turn with the set, yes, feasible. Really actually happening? I'm not sure. Moving in with the straight on this river, I'm not sure. Maybe you feel like all better hands are going to, jam anyway, and I'm going to call. So I move in to get called by 2 aces with the ace of spades and pray it finds a call or something. I don't know. It seems hard, but maybe. I don't know. Well, I'm not sure how feasible these things actually are, but I think in theory, yes, he can have all these things and do this.
Well, as Weiss, you have to convince yourself that they're feasible because you have queen high.
Right. So. And you're losing, and we know the board is terrifying.
So we thought maybe Weiss gives up on a spade. Are there any other types of cards that you think Weiss gives up on? And do you think this is one that he should consider giving up on, despite the feasibility that we just outlined?
I don't think he should. I think this is a great card to go for. When we decide to bet the turn, we could give up on the turn. We could be like, you know what? Okay, this is rough. I haven't put that much in. Like, I'm not going to go for it here. Like, I like going for it on the turn. Don't get me wrong. It's a scary card. But I can see being like, all right. Now that we're here, now that the fourth spade didn't come, I think we go for it even if the fourth spade does. But I think this is a better card to do it on. Because we said it's 10s or it's like an overpair with a spade. And I guess once in a while, it's a slow played nut flush. Those are like the 3 hands. It really is, right? Or a king high flush once in a while. That's it. Okay, the nut flush is not going to fold no matter what. We're going to lose to that. 10s are probably gone, and the overpairs are probably gone if we move in, right? There's one combo of ace king of spades. There's one combo of ace queen of spades. He might just flat with ace queen of spades pre-flop in this exact configuration that we had, right?
He might
not, but okay, even if he isn't, even if he 3-bets ace jack of spades, that's only 3 combos compared to, there's 6 combos of 10s alone, right? Like it's already worth moving in just for that. Is he actually going to call with 2 queens, 2 black queens here on the river? How can he do it? That seems impossible, doesn't it? Impossible.
Well, you can't have 2 black queens. You can have one black queen.
Well, queens with the queen of spades. You're right.
Yeah.
But like, is he really going to call? That's like, wow, that feels like so above the rim and so like, and probably foolhardy in a lot of situations. So
yeah, something we haven't made note of, I don't know if there's anywhere to go with it, but something notable is that from Weiss's perspective, the most likely holdings of overpairs are 10s, kings, and aces for Tsouloftas because he blocks queens and jacks with queen jack. So it's kind of the wrong 2 overcards to have in this spot,
A little bit. But,
yeah,
what are kings and aces going to do? Like, I will say this. So Hardigan who's doing the commentary, is saying if he moves in, there's no way aces can call here. There's just no way. And of course, Oliver Weis moves in. And then Hardigan's already saying, it's over, the hand's over. What a great play. He assumes there's no more, that the hand's over for sure.
Well, that's why we're here.
That's
to break it down from Tsouloftas' perspective now. So, all right, obviously there's the one blind stack there. That sucks.
Yeah.
Something that's cool is that we know Weis is capable of bluffing here. We know that for sure. It's got to be running through our mind that like there are certain players you can never call here. This isn't one of those players. We can consider calling.
Okay. Yeah, it's like Michael Adamo is here, right?
Yeah. So then the next question is what are the hands we're calling with? Obviously, if we have the slow played nut flush, we're calling with that. Or the king high flush, whatever.
We don't care. We're sucking it up and always calling.
If we somehow have a full house, which is only 9-9 really, I think probably we're raising the flop with any other thing that would become a full house now.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So if we have 9-9, obviously easy call.
Of course.
No problem.
But yeah.
Yeah. So what's next? 10-10 would you rather have 10-10 or would you rather have aces with the ace of spades?
Wow. It's a great question. So I guess I would think that Oliver is more likely to do this with a flush than a straight. I think he's probably moving in with either one. Probably. But I'm not 100% sure he's moving in with the straight. I'm sure he's moving in with the nut flush. So I prefer blocking the nut flush. There's also probably more combos of nutted spades here because we 3-bet, but we didn't 3-bet huge, and he's the massive chip leader. He can afford to throw in 4
he's
blinds
calling
anyway.
with every suited ace for sure.
So that means he's got more of those, and he's leading with that, I believe. The problem is the suited ace is death for us. That we know that, right? So there's more combos of the nut flush by a lot than there are of tens. I don't think like he probably has Jack 10 suited, but he probably doesn't have Jack 10 off, right? He probably doesn't have Queen 10 off. He might not even have Queen 10 suited. He probably has Queen 10 suited.
He has Queen 10 suited.
Yeah, he does. Of course he does. He probably has King 10 suited. He's got some tens, but I just think he may check a 10 when on this board, thinking like, how do I get value with a straight here? Like, don't I do better checking and letting like this guy, if this guy can ever find a bluff or like a desperate bluff, like let him do it? Or I don't know if we can find value.
I don't think we can find bluffs from Tsouloftas.
It's hard to find bluffs, and it's hard to find calls if we move in with worse hands, right? Unless the guy heroes us with an overpair with a spade. I don't know. Maybe we move in because it doesn't matter because we're calling it off anyway.
I think we simplify it and just move in with hands like 10-10.
Maybe.
As Weis.
Maybe
that's just the simplest way to do it instead of twisting our brain into knots trying to figure out ways for everything to line up perfectly.
Yeah, you sold me on that. That makes sense.
Yeah. But so I think what you were getting at though overall is that this is a better hand to have than tens. It's better to have aces with the ace of spades.
Yes, that is what I'm getting at. So we were going to call if we had tens, right? We were definitely going to have to call. We weren't going to love it. I think we're going to have to call.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, if we can, whatever we can beat with tens, we can beat with the ace of spades, or the two aces anyway, right? They're beating the same range. Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool.
We'd rather have this hand by a lot.
Then for sure. Yeah. Like we block more stuff and we're beating the same amount of bluffs. Right. There's no value that tens beat that aces. There's no value that tens beat, period. Right. Tens are also, I think it's catcher.
Pretty, I think we might even need to call with kings with the king of spades. I think we might go like, I think I'd rather have kings with the king of spades than two red tens, actually, even though it's not the nut flush. I mean, I think just blocking a spade in general is good. Because Weis is going to have a lot of spade combos that aren't the nut spade combos also.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he has like king 5 of spades, like on the flop.
No, but king 10, king jack, and king queen of spades all are there.
No question.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I want to say this. So I agree with you. All the things we said, I agree with. But I don't know for sure that all these hands are like the story that's being told is a questionable story, right? The lead bet shove is still a questionable story here, right? Like if you flopped really great, why didn't you let me bet? Why didn't you let me see bet?
Because I mean, it depends on what Weis's perception of Tsouloftas is, but there's a lot of players, good players, who are not going to see bet anything on this board because of the range advantage.
I mean, a lot of players, I think, are when it's heads up after a 3-bet, I think most people are c-betting. This is a super rough board, admittedly, and this is a better board to check back than most, even, because it's so connected and so wet. Yeah. Still, having said that, the story is still like, I mean, okay, you can have it, but also the board kept changing. Like, so you had to have the draw that came in and you're betting even though the board paired, or you have to have the set that bet the turn when everything got there and the set now hates its life. Right.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to fold some things as Tsouloftas, right? I mean, like,
so
you're kind of making the argument that Weis is telling a bad enough story that everything that makes sense for us to get here with is a call, because everything that makes sense for us to get here with is either now a straight, a full house, the nut flush, or an overpair with a spade in it.
Well, you're right. We have to fold some things, no question.
Yeah.
Let's say we have like a little bit of 9-9. We have a little bit of ace, king, and queen. We have a little bit of the nut flush. We have, and then if we think aces are better than 10s, then we have aces. And then do we need to keep going? Like you said, kings. Okay. Yeah. And then are we folding
all with a spade, of course?
Of course. Everything has to have a spade. We didn't call the turn without a spade in our hand, or a better hand, or like 10s, or like a straight at least, or a set. So does that mean we're folding queens and jacks even with the spade, and we're folding 2 10s also? Because I think we probably have to fold that much, right?
We could maybe get here with aces without a spade on the turn sometimes. Kings without a spade.
On that card, it's such a brutal card, man.
Yeah.
Do you really want to do you really want to play that game? You can get out right now. You still have like 50 blinds or 45 blinds. Like
you're right. Probably not.
I think they just get out. Like, I think that turn bet was designed to fold out 2 red queens and the like, and probably was going to work. Well, I do think it was going to work.
No matter where we draw the line, we do agree that there are some folds, but we also agree that this is not one of them.
You just, man, it's tough because it's one pair and the board is so freaking brutal. I
mean, that's the power of the ICM situation, right?
Yes.
This is kind of a version of the overbet that doesn't make any sense in the cash game, right? It's like, well, I guess I'm just doing it anyway because it works too much, because there's a 1 blind stack there and this guy doesn't want to leave $70,000 on the table for no reason.
Right. It's a super strong thing to do. I mean, honestly, even without the 1 blind stack, it's a really tough call. Like, if we have two black queens here, I guess we can't find it. The queen of diamonds and the queen of spades. The guy moves in and no one has a 1 blind stack. Everything's normal. It's a super tough call on this board, and probably we consider folding like maybe all the time, even. Like, it's a really, really tough spot. With the board is paired, there's 4 to a straight, there's 3 spades. Yeah, I mean, he can call our 3 bets really wide. Yeah.
I wonder if the 1 blind stack isn't there, if Weis makes this play.
Right.
And beyond that, I wonder if Tsouloftas calls, because Tsouloftas does call with the 1 blind stack there. Woo. And I wonder if the 1 blind stack was a factor in, like, it worked the opposite way from what Weis wanted, right? Where it was like, oh, I know now that I have to call because you're going to make this play too frequently.
I mean, you could make a case of Tsouloftas, and I don't know if this is real, but you could say with that 1 blind stack there, even if this guy has quad fucking 6s, would he really bet all in here on the river? Doesn't he want to make sure he gets called? Like, an all in is so strong. Wouldn't he be afraid of folding out all my hands that I would call with? Like, I'm just going to fold out so much. Like, doesn't he want to get value here? Like, he's going to lose value. He wants to leave me a little something so that way I can call, instead of like talk myself into this fold, And so it's like, it's the level. It's just a leveling war thing.
It's a leveling war. So you have to move in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the leveling war.
But again, like, how often are we really going to be in these spots? It's so rare to be in this kind of a spot with the 1 blind stack behind us and all that, like, it's a leveling war, but like, it may be one time, one hand ever that you're in a leveling war, this leveling war with this guy. So often people are just going to, Occam's razor and take the simple, easy solution rather than the comfortable, easy solution, right? When it's one spot instead of like, it's going to be like this all night. So I have to make some stands. I have to fight back. It isn't like that. It's once probably, or, so.
Yeah, but Weis has the leveling war within the one hand is like Weis having to figure out if Tsouloftas is going to read into that way or not.
But the truth is, you could go back and forth like this forever, right? On either side, we could say, well, because of this, then you do the opposite, and that's always true, right?
Yeah, of course.
I think practically, though, it's reasonable to say, would he really move me in? Really? Doesn't he want to get value? Doesn't he? Like, I would think people would default to that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think people would default to wanting to make sure they got some value rather than the move in, unless we had a crazy dynamic, because they just would be afraid they'd be folding out too much in this one-hand leveling war that we're in, instead of like several hours long leveling war.
This is not the same, but it kind of reminds me of a cash game I recently played. I was playing 1-2 waiting for the bigger game to open, and I had aces, and I ended up betting the river and getting called and showing down and winning. And the guy said, I never put you on an overpair because you only raised to 10 pre-flop.
I know they say things like that. I know.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that one for a while. Like something like that, where they expect me to size differently with different hands.
Yeah, no, I feel like I still hear that a lot. Like kings, you only went whatever 4x with kings. I'm like, I go 4x with everything, buddy. You know, or like what? Like it's all nothing. Like there's nothing about what the actual two cards are that has anything to do with the size pre-flop. Like, yeah. Except against a very particular opponent, maybe. You know, but otherwise, it's like. It has nothing to do with that, but I don't tell them that because why would you tell them that, right?
No, you can't do that.
But sometimes they call you because of that. Sometimes you call and lose. They call me and I lose because they're like, well, I knew you didn't have an overpair because you only made it this much. And I'm like, God damn it. That's not the way it works. But I can't say that either because I'm like, well, I'll get them next time, I guess. You know?
Yeah. The other fun thing is getting put on ace king in every hand that ever happens.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everybody has ace king.
There are more combos of ace king than there are aces and kings, so there's that.
Yeah.
But not aces, kings, and queens. So
no,
goes the other way.
Anyway, Tsouloftas makes a nice hero call. I know that we logicked it out, and it makes sense to call here against the online crusher kid, but like it's not easy to flick those chips in. It is not a fun spot.
I mean, you just doubled up in this lucky way, and now you're suddenly going to like call it off anyway and like be out immediately the very next hand when you like. By the way, now you doubled up and we're effectively almost guaranteed a ladder up, guaranteed because of that lucky double up. And now you're going to give it all back. I mean, it feels like that is not easy in real time, in real life to throw that in. It's one thing to say like, oh yeah, you have to call with two aces with the ace of spades. It's another thing to actually do it in that spot. I think it'd be very easy to fold your hand, which I guess Weis was counting on. But man, that is not what happened.
It is not. Tsouloftas calls, Tsouloftas wins and ends up getting second in the tournament to Weis. Weis still wins the tournament. Of course, he still had a lot of chips. He started the hand with 20 million. So
when they got heads up, though, Tsouloftas had a 5-1 chip lead, and Weis came back and won anyway.
Oh wow!
So think about that next time.
Yeah,
next time you're walking around.
Anyway, that call I think had a huge factor in Tsouloftas getting as far as second, though.
Of course,
good job.
Also, if I'm Weis, I may feel like, okay, I need to readjust the dials against this guy a little bit. Like, maybe I need to have more value. Yeah. Like he's not afraid. This guy not afraid at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So good for him. Well done.
Great job.
Music is my sunlight, and all I need is one mic, and I can show every single MC how it's done right. Every time I come by, I'm bound to leave them tongue-tied. I'm sipping on liquor, a quitter is what I'm not. We got one life, and I took a minor break, but I'm back to claim the throne, and gonna be traveling the globe, and still have time to make it home, and you gon' meet